Hey YouTube, welcome to the red set review of Kaldheim on Twitch, which is why there's chat up here and people rating cards. Let's get going. Up first is Arnie Broken Bow. Arnie Broken Bow is 2 in a red for a legendary creature, human berserker. At rare, it's a 3/3 haste with boast for a single generic mana. You may change Arnie Broken Bow's base power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control until end of turn. Other creatures. Okay, so it can't just become a 4/3 on its own. Broken Brow. Okay, he's got a... Is that a horn shoved in his head? Looks like there's a horn shoved in his head. Cardboard Live. I uninstalled Cardboard Live from my extension options. It says heat map is set as the overlay. Man, maybe the heat map extension just doesn't work that well on Twitch. Should be reactive now. Yeah, this card's solid. It's a 3/3 for 3, which is great. It's got haste, which is great. And if you have anything bigger than a 3/3, Arnie is just going to get bigger. I think it's very solid. I think it's a first pick. It's a nice aggressive creature. It perhaps is not just instantly winning the game out of anywhere, but I think I'm picking, maybe it's second, third. I think I might pick unconditional removal over this. Let's go second, third. Refreshing fixed it. There you go. Guard Cavalry is up next. Guard Cavalry is 1 in a red for a creature, Dwarf Berserker. At common, it's a 2/2. Tap it. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. I liked this a lot more when it was Bloodlust Insider, and it was a 1 mana 1/1. The upside is this one can maybe attack a little bit better, but yeah. You're putting this in one very specific deck, and you can pick it up on the wheel, for sure. Riding the Goat. Dwarven expression, meaning a foolhardy act of bravery. So, like, keeping a 1-lander is riding the goat? Okay, good to know. Basalt Ravager is up next. Basalt Ravager is 3 in a red for a creature giant wizard at uncommon. It's a 4/2. When Basalt Ravager enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So it's a 4/2 for 4 that at least does a damage to any target. Hopefully, at least shocks, perhaps even more. I think this card's great. Absolutely super great. You're probably going to be in red-blue wizards because it is a giant wizard. And I don't think giants crosses over much other than specifically blue-red. And I don't think wizard crosses over too much except specifically blue-red. So this is probably a blue-red gold card, but a very good one at that. I'm going to second, third pick this for sure. I'll take premium removal over it in bombs, but I'm picking this pretty dang highly. It hits face. It hits face. This can just end a game out of turn. There's some face burn, but not a ton. That's kind of the way most sets go. So yeah, second, third pick for Basalt Ravager. Up next is Birgi, God of Storytelling. That went off. That got away from me. Birgi is 2 in a red for a legendary creature god. At rare, it's a 3/3. Whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns rather than once. 3/3 for 3, cool. Everything I cast sort of has a 1 mana discount. Cool. Boasting twice, I think, sounds better than it is, because you have to have the mana for it. And if you're putting all that mana into boasting, you're probably not doing much else on that turn. But I mean, if that's the thing that you're doing, it's probably a very good choice to do so. So I think Birgi isn't incredible on the front, but is still very good, and probably still ultimately is a second, third pick. On the backside, we've got Harnfeld, Horn of Bounty. Harnfeld, Horn of Bounty is 4 in a red for a legendary artifact. Discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. Only second spell has a discount? Huh? Every spell has a discount, because every spell gets 1 red back. Well, I guess the first one doesn't have a discount because you have to have the mana to pay for it. Yeah, I get the understanding. So Harnfeld, I don't like. It's 5 mana, do nothing. like do literally nothing until you discard a card. Late game, it's kind of cool because you draw that land that you don't want, you discard that land, and you turn it into 2 real cards that you can play this turn. But it is expensive and slow. So I don't think I'm really looking to play Harnfeld. If it's late game and I top deck Birgi, I guess there will be an interesting decision to make there, and maybe I do play Harnfeld in some of those situations. But I think I'm generally just playing Birgi out and being fine with it. I think this is a second, third pick, and then you start building around it, maybe getting a few more boast creatures and whatnot. Yeah, second, third, but a little bit of a weakish second, third there. Breakneck Berserker is up next. Breakneck Berserker is 2 and a red for a creature, Dwarf Berserker at common. It's a 3/2 with haste. Very filler. I think you can probably just always pick this up on the wheel. Not deep on the wheel, pretty shallow on the wheel, like 9th pick, but it's fine. If you're being aggressive, here you go. This is the card that you want. If you're red-white, there's a brief interest in dwarfs. If you are red-black, there's an interest in berserkers. Totally fine, but you can pick it up on the wheel. Calamity Bearer is up next. Calamity Bearer is 2 red for a creature, giant berserker at rare. It's a 3/4. If a giant source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Obviously, you're jamming this into blue-red giants. 4 mana 3/4 is okay, but not great. But if a giant source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player. Yeah, so it attacks like it's a 6/4. And all of your other giants, attack really big too. Solid card. I think it's a pretty fine first pick. And then you build around it, in which, you just pick giant cards, which you already want for your blue-red deck anyways. Pretty easy first pick. Not exactly the bombiest of bomby first picks, but still very good first pick for Calamity Bearer. Up next is Cinderheart Giant. Cinderheart Giant is 5 red for a creature, giant berserker at common. It's a 7/6 trample, and when it dies, it deals 7 to a creature an opponent controls, chosen at random. High Hearthstone. 7's a lot. 7's a lot. You need to have a plan to cast this card. If you have a plan to cast this card, perhaps you're ramping in green, perhaps you have, was it Invasion of the Giants that gave a discount, or was it the other one, or did both of them give a discount? Because one gave a discount to expensive spells, and one gave a discount to giants. If you have a plan for casting this, I think you're pretty happy with one of them. If you don't have if your plan is play 7 lands, maybe play better cards than Cinderheart Giant. I think you can pick this up on the wheel regardless, and that's about it. Pick it up on the wheel, put it in if you have a plan to cast it. Up next is Craven Hulk. Craven Hulk is 3 and a red for a creature, giant coward. Giant cowards. At common, it's a 4/4, and it can't block alone, but it can attack alone. I think this is a very big role player for the giant deck, because of course a lot of giants, being giants, are 5 mana, 6 mana, 7 mana. This one's 4. This is going to be a nice little, introduction into the giants in the rest of your deck. Now, it doesn't block well, so you better be an aggressive deck, or, have more creatures down to block it. But I think it's a fine card. I think it's around, probably still just on the wheel. And maybe this is interesting. Maybe the giants are all so mediocre for non-giant decks that they're all going to be picked up on the wheel, which is actually pretty cool. It is a bit of a curve filler, although 4 drops are getting towards where your curve might want to start to think about tapering off. But yeah, I think realistically you can probably pick this up on the wheel, perhaps at 6th to 8th pick though. Up next is Crush the Weak. Crush the Weak is 2 and a red for a sorcery at uncommon. Crush the Weak deals 2 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead, foretell it for a single red mana. So it's expensive Pyroclasm or cheap Pyroclasm. And it exiles stuff. I don't typically play Pyroclasm. I didn't really play Cinderclasm that much. Sure, I got wrecked by it a few times, but it was never a card that I was deeply interested in getting my hands on all the time. I prefer these types of cards as a sideboard card because you don't know how often this is going to just like not do anything against an opponent. So I think you can probably pick this up on the wheel, and then you can put it in when relevant. Reminds you of a bad magma spray. This is 2 damage to each creature. Magma spray is 2 damage to 1 creature of your choice. If I'm remembering magma. Yeah, magma spray is 2 damage to a creature. This is 2 to everything, which is very different because it could hurt you just as much. Obviously, you're going to want this in the giant deck where you know that it's not going to hurt you that much. You don't want this in your red-white dwarf deck or whatnot. So I'm going to put this on the wheel, which is probably too low, meaning that I'll never see it. But for me, it's on the wheel. Up next is Demon Bolt. Demon Bolt is 2 and a red for an instant at common. Demon Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, foretell for a single red. It's great. It's very, very, very good. It's going to kill a lot of the things that you want to kill. It's going to kill the rest of the things after combat, and maybe it only costs 1 red mana. It's instant speed. It is first pick in some packs where there's no unconditional removal or bombs, which means really it's a second, third pick. So second, third pick for Demon Bolt. Up next is Doomscar Titan. Doomscar Titan is 4 red for a creature giant berserker red uncommon. It's a 4/4. When Doomscar Titan enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. Foretell for 4 and a red. 6 mana 4/4. 6 mana 5/4 haste the first time it comes out. It's a little surprising. It's fine. It's kind of like the Minotaur that we had in Zendikar. I could foretell it for 5. That's kind of cool. Gives like half a trumpet blast to my team. You're probably not giving haste to anything else that matters. This is all fine. This just looks like a pretty solid giant berserker. I think I actually prefer this a little bit more in the berserker deck than I do in the blue-red giant wizards deck. And I think it'll be a decent role player there, as long as you are pretty confident you can get to 6 mana or 5 without caring too much. So I'm going to put this like 6th through 8th pick, I think. I don't think I want to wait for the wheel on this. And yeah, I think it's going to play a good role in those 2 decks. What is red-green supposed to be? Red-green's like the big mana one, right? It's probably fine in red-green, and red-white is probably not where you want to play this card. Up next is Dragonkin Berserker. Dragonkin Berserker is 1 and a red for a creature human berserker at rare. It's a 2/2 with first strike. Boast abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate for each dragon you control, which will probably be 0 because there's 1 rare and 1 mythic dragon, and that's it. Boast for 4 and a red. Make a 5/5 dragon. There you go. You can start racking up dragons, except you're probably not racking up dragons because your opponent's going to desperately want to kill this. And it's not that hard to block a 2/2 first striker after about turn 3 or so. But if you get 1 dragon off this card, you've probably gotten there. If you get a second dragon off of this card, your opponent's going to be having some significant issues. So Dragonkin Berserker, I think, is a solid second or a solid first pick. Solid first pick. Interestingly, you play it on turn 2. It's going to be a while till you make that first dragon, so you might not actually want to play this on turn 2. There will be some interesting play patterns, I think, with this card, but I think it's a first pick. I think it's very good. I think the boast thing doesn't matter that much. I think the fact that you're just making 5/5 dragons is what matters. So I'm going to go first pick on Dragonkin Berserker. Up next is Dual Strike. Yeah, Dual Strike. Up next is Dual Strike. Red for an instant add-on common. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Foretell for 1 red. I don't play these cards. I don't play them. I don't want to put this in my deck and have it be the worst top deck ever on an empty hand and have it not be relevant until I draw a card that I want to copy. And that card that I'm going to copy has to be relevant. Like, ooh, I'm copying a removal spell and my opponent has 1 creature down. Or, ooh, I'm copying a counter spell. So I don't like playing these cards. I treat them as Fs. I don't play them. Didn't play Fork. Didn't play the mythic Seagate, whatever it was in Zendikar. Didn't play Double Vision or whatever it was. I don't play these cards. So they're an F for me. And they should be an F for you. Dwarven Hammer is up next. Dwarven Hammer is 2 and a red for an artifact equipment at uncommon. When Dwarven Hammer enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 2/1 red Dwarf Berserker creature token, then attach Dwarven Hammer to it. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has trample. Equip for 3. So 4 and a red, we get a 5/1 trample. No. No. Not playing that. Not playing a 5 mana, 5/1 trample. Absolutely not. 3 mana, equip 3 to +3/+0 trample. No, absolutely not. No interest. No interest in this card. I'm going to go with an F. Like, this is our red equipment for our red white equipment deck. I don't think I'm going to be playing red-white equipment that much. F for Dwarven Hammer. I don't want to play this in either configuration. Up next is Dwarven Reinforcements. Dwarven Reinforcements is 3 and a red for a sorcery at common. Create 2 2/1 red Dwarf Berserker creature tokens for Tell for 1 and a red. So 4 mana. 4 mana for 2 1/1s. Normally we pay 4 mana for 2 2/2s with Vigilance, right? With Kaldheim Cavalry. This is much worse. But we could foretell her for 2. Paying 2 mana for 2 2/1 red Dwarf Berserkers is pretty decent. And they're dwarfs. Could be relevant for red-white. Berserkers could be relevant for red-black. I feel like you probably wheel this card with no problem. Maybe it's 6th to 8th pick, but I do think you wheel this card with no problem. So I'm going to put it on wheel. Up next is Fearless Liberator. Fearless Liberator is 1 and a red for a creature Dwarf Berserker at uncommon. It's a 2/1 with Boast for 2 and a red. This is one of the more expensive boasts we've seen, other than the dragon one. Create a 2/1 red Dwarf Berserker creature token. So it's a 2/1 that attacks and makes a 2/1. My issue with this card is I'm not sure how or when I'm doing this. So I play it on turn 2, it's a 2/1. My opponent has stumbled or something, and I'm able to attack in on turn 3. Am I making another 2/1? Or am I just casting a better 3-drop out of my hand? And then turn 3, 4, 5, and later, what is my 2/1 doing? Probably attacking in and dying really easily, and I guess it replaces itself once? And I don't think it's relevant enough. I think this is going to get by being a piker in an aggressive deck that can save you from perhaps a bad opening draw where maybe you're not able to curve out on 3, and it's a dwarf and it's a berserker. So I think it has a place. And I think its place is just like aggro attack 'em decks. But I don't think the Boast is going to do that much. So I'm putting this like 6th to 8th pick, maybe just on the wheel. Could have been a common. I agree. It definitely could have been a common. 6th to 8th pick, I'll say, just because it's on an uncommon and people are going to pick it too highly. But I do think that there's a realistic chance you should just be able to pick this up on the wheel. So yeah, let's go with wheel for Fearless Liberator. Up next is Fearless Pup. Fearless Pup is a single red mana for a creature wolf at common. It's a 1/1 first strike with Boast, 2 and a red. Fearless Pup gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This really reminds me of Kessig Wolf from Innistrad. Kessig Wolf was way better. It was a 3/1 for 3. And you paid 1 and a green to give it first strike. It could block as a 3/1 first striker. And it was a great bit of threat of activation. This, I don't like as much. 3 is a lot of mana to give +2/+0. But there's that threat of activation. So you attack in with this and your opponent goes, oh God, no, I have to block with an X4 because they can pump it. And so you attack in with it and they don't block. Do you pump it? No, you probably establish the board, right? Paying 3 mana to get 2 damage this turn. is probably not as good as just playing a 3-drop. And so this is kind of like an unblockable 1/1. And I don't know if I play an unblockable 1/1. No, I know I don't play an unblockable 1/1. Now, you can put runes on this. You can put equipment on this. You can do dumb things to this and make it an obnoxious, disposable first striker. Yeah, LOL runes. So I think you pick this up on the wheel if you want to play it. And I don't think I'm playing it. I think there's just better ways to be aggressive in this format, and it doesn't have a relevant creature type. So let's go with F. Maybe it's on the wheel, but I don't think I ever have to play this card. Up next is Frenzied Raider. Frenzied Raider is 1 and a red for a creature demon berserker at uncommon. It's a 2/2. Whenever you activate a boast ability, put a +1/+1 counter on Frenzied Raider. So 2/2 for 2. Hopefully before too long becomes a 3/3. At which point, hey, that's pretty good stats. It has that slight problem I mentioned of how often are you boasting instead of establishing the board. But again, if boasting is the correct decision, then you're probably in a pretty good state. And so you are sort of establishing the board by giving this counters, and they are counters, which is very nice. I think this is probably in the... I think this is in like the 6th to 8th pick range, but is a signal that like the red blackish boast aggro deck is open, and you take it and you start really collecting boast, and it then goes up in value. It goes up in value if you're already in boast as well. So I think it's like 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, somewhere around there. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. Like I said, I'm very interested in how much you can boast without establishing the board, and we'll see how that goes. But you don't have to boast that much to make this real big, real big. Pretty sure it's in every red deck. How much boast is in red? Set Kaldheim in booster, color red, oracle text, boast. 3 commons. 3 commons and 1 uncommon. And then 1 rare. I don't think it's in every red deck. I don't think there's enough boast to support it. Now it is just a 2/2, but 2/2s for 2 have dropped. 2/2s for 2 have heavily dropped in modern era. That was way less boast than I expected to see, by the way. That was way less boast than I expected to see. Oh, sorry, 2 rares, because there's Arnie as well. Yeah, I think you need the first trigger. The first trigger, this is good. Well, the first trigger, this is nice. Second trigger, it gets good. Let's go 6th to 8th to start, and it goes up if you find yourself getting a lot of boast. Up next is Frostbite. Frostbite is a single red mana for a snow instant at common. Frostbite deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you control 3 or more snow permanents, it deals 3 damage instead. Great card. Doesn't hit face, unfortunately, so it's not quite as good as Shock or Lightning Bolt, but it's still very good because as much as hitting face is nice, killing creatures is what you're doing for a lot of a game of Magic. And yeah, this card's great. If it's just a Shock, it is totally fine. And if it happens to be a Bolt, it's even better. This is... where does Shock fall? Shock is like 4th to 5th. Bolt, of course, is like 2nd to 3rd. Somewhere in the middle there. 3.5. 3.5 pick for Frostbite. Up next is Goldspan Dragon. Goldspan Dragon is 3 red for a creature dragon at Mythic. It's a 4/4 flying haste, so it's a first pick. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, make a treasure token. Treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. That's all basically flavor text. We're at 5 mana already. Getting a bunch of treasures and making the treasures at 2 mana is not that much of an upside, but it is an upside on a 4/4 flying haste in red for 5. It's a first pick. It's a great card. Take it. Win some games. Up next is Hagrimob. Hagrimob is 4 and a red for a creature troll berserker at common. It's a 5/4 with boast. 1 and a red. Hagrimob. Oh, Hagi, not Hagri. Hagrimob deals 1 damage to any target. 5/4 for 4 that pings something when it attacks. Could be your opponent's face. It's fine, but I think you can probably pick this up on the wheel. 5 drops are not something that you typically put a huge value on because they're very expensive unless they're like winning the game or something. So I think you can probably pretty reliably pick this up on the wheel. You only really want 1 of them at most, and you only really want that if you're in like... What deck wants this? The Berserker deck, I guess. Like, this is probably just a little bit too expensive for an aggro deck. You don't really want to be playing too many 5-drops unless they're like the best aggro game-ending cards you've ever seen, like the Dragon. So yeah, I'm going to put this on the wheel. I don't think it's for every deck. I don't think you want to stack up on them. But, you know, it's a nice little bit of extra damage to the opponent. It's a 5/4, which is a beefy thing. So yeah, wheel for Hagrimob. Up next is Immerstrom Raider. Immerstrom Raider is 1 and a red for a creature demon berserker at common. It's a 2/1. When Immerstrom Raider enters the battlefield, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. It's Fisher Wizard. Fisher Wizard's fine. Fisher Wizard is like 6th through 8th pick, I think. Wizard was way more relevant in Zendikar than I think Berserker is going to be in Kaldheim, but I think this is still a fine 6th through 8th pick. I have learned to really enjoy 2/1s for 2 in red that rummage. So yeah, 6th through 8th pick for Immerstrom Rider. Up next is Magda Brazen Outlaw. Magda Brazen Outlaw is 1 and a red for a legendary creature dwarf berserker at rare. To 2/1, other dwarfs you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token, sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. You are probably not finding a dragon, and you're probably not finding an artifact because they haven't been great, but I mean, I guess if you have one in your deck, why not sack 5 treasures and go get it? But this is a piker that if you happen to have a whole bunch of dwarfs, goes up in value. That's going to be red-white. Let's do a quick check. Creature type of dwarf at a rarity below rare. You are looking at 4 dwarfs in red, one of which is uncommon. And you are looking at 4 dwarfs in white, all of which are common, and then there is a red and white dwarf. So dwarfs are there at common. That was, what, 8 commons I said? It's a lot of dwarfs. Giving your red-white deck +1/+0? Probably fine. It's not a first pick. It's not a second or third pick. Is it a 4th or 5th pick? Maybe it's a 4th or 5th pick. It's a card that you really want to see when you decided to go red-white and it's pack 3. And you're like, ooh, this goes in. But yeah, let's go 4th, 5th pick for Magda Brazen Outlaw. Up next is Open the Omen Paths. Open the Omen Paths is 2 and a red for an instant at common. Choose 1. Add 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color. Spend this mana only to cast creature or enchantment spells. Mana fixing. You know, Red's domain, mana fixing. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. If you're splashing, you want this red card. I guess you ramp by 1, but that's not good enough. Half a Trumpet Blast is not good enough. I think this card's just not good enough unless you are specifically very multicolor. In which case, hey, you get 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color. And that's pretty cool. That's not something you get in red very much. So I think you can pick this up on the wheel, and I think only a few decks are actually going to want this. Let's get this battle going quickly, and then we'll come back to this finish off red. I don't think we have too many cards left in red. Looking to me like we've got 16 left. I didn't put this on the right screen. There we go. I'm professional. Super professional. Oh, the more I look at the set, the more I'm excited. I especially like how many cards there are that are like, it goes in the snow deck, and it goes in the zombie deck, and it goes in the cleric deck. Because that opens things up quite a lot. And perhaps puts an emphasis on the draft portion, which is what makes me like a draft set, is when the draft portion matters and is interesting. It's when the draft portion is on rails where I just kind of tune out. Why is this taking so long? Level 10 Retro Monster. Kamenag with the most kills, Rocky with the most assists. Open that chest. 8 gold to everybody, 200 gold to Techno, and 50 gold to Ejdro. Let's head on towards that boss. Don't think we'll get there today. Pop your units in every 5 minutes. Let's continue on with the review. Up next is Provoke the Trolls. Boss fights are outdated. Provoke the Trolls is 3 and a red for an instant at uncommon. Provoke the Trolls deals 3 damage to any target. If a creature is dealt damage this way, it gets +5/+0 until end of turn. 4 mana, deal 3 damage is fine. I would prefer to play Lightning Bolt, but I'll pay 4 mana for that Lightning Bolt, I guess, if I have to. Casting this on your own creature that is an X4, X4s are pretty rare. X5s, X6s, X7s are pretty rare. X3 is really where most creatures are. So it's not, super often that you're going to be casting this on your own creature. But giving it +5/+0 is kind of cool, because that kind of makes this an instant speed lava axe. Sort of. If your opponent didn't block your 4/4 or something. So I think this is a cool card. And at worst, it's just an expensive lightning bolt, which is fine. So I'm going to put this 4th, 5th pick. It's not going to be 2nd, 3rd, but I'm pretty happy with a 4th, 5th pick for Provoke the Trolls here. Up next is Quakebringer. Quakebringer is 3 red for a creature giant berserker at Mythic. It's a 5/4. Your opponents can't gain life. At the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield, or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. Foretell for 2 red. This is one-sided sulfuric vortex that, if they kill, is probably still turned on. I love this card. This is a strong first pick. This speaks to the mono red in me. Love this card. Easy first pick for Quakebringer. Make sure you're playing giants. Easy first pick for Quakebringer. Up next is Reckless Crew. Reckless Crew is 3 and a red for a sorcery. At rare, create X 2/1 red dwarf berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of vehicles you control plus the number of equipment you control. For each of these tokens, you may attach an equipment you control to this. It's an F. This card is garbage. How many vehicles are you playing? 1? Maybe 2? Max? How many equipment are you playing? We've seen almost all of the equipment. 1? 2 max? You're not getting enough 2/1s off of this card to make it worthwhile. It's an F. Absolutely horrendous. And it's a rare. It's a rare. Run Amok is 1 and a red for an instant common. Target attacking creature gets +3/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. This is a decent combat trick. We had it in Eldraine. Was it an Eldraine? No, it wasn't an Eldraine, because Eldraine was non-humans get. This was in something. This was in a a Ravnica set because it had Domri's face on it. This is a fine combat trick. Giant growth for 2 mana, and giving surprise trample can be pretty good, but you can wheel this card. You're not picking this card highly, and you're not putting this in the deck. You're not making a spot for run amok, but if you happen to have a spot, it's a totally fine combat trick. On the wheel for run amok. Rune of Speed is up next. It was in Dominaria? Okay. It definitely, I'm sure, was in Ravnica Allegiance or Guilds of Ravnica, I think, because it had Domri's face on it, did it not? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Up next is Rune of Speed. Rune of Speed is 1 and a red for an enchantment or a rune at uncommon enchant permanent. When Rune of Speed enters the battlefield, draw a card. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+0 and has haste. As long as enchanted permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has haste. Auras that give haste are not good. Because you're spending a card and 2 mana to give something haste once, and it's never relevant again, and then all we have left is +1/+0. Haste is better on equipment, and it's still not great. So we would have to play an equipment, of which there's not many we want to play, and we would have to play Rune of Speed. We would have to draw the equipment, play the equipment, draw Rune of Speed, play Rune of Speed. Ha! We have an equipment that gives +1/+0 in haste. Get this on the wheel, and this one gives a power boost, and I still don't really want to play it. I don't think the runes are good. Wheel it, and I'm not playing it. Up next is Seize the Spoils. Seize the Spoils is 2 and a red for a sorcery at common. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards, and create a treasure token. So it's a slightly more expensive Tormenting Voice, but you do get a treasure. So ultimately, it's the same cost. I don't know. Do you want a Tormenting Voice? I feel like I've been so spoiled with whatever the other one is that we have recently that's instant speed that I can't remember the name of. Going back to sorcery speed for this feels kind of bad. You can pick this up on the wheel, and not many decks are going to be desperately looking to play it. Up next is Shackles of Treachery. Shackles of Treachery is 2 and a red for a sorcery at common. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature until end of turn. It gains haste. And whenever this creature deals damage, destroy target equipment attached to it. That's a very niche last sentence there. But if you get that value off of it, cool. This is just Threaten, Act of Treason. It even costs 3 mana. Like that's what Threaten costs. Are you a person who plays Threaten? Pick it up. If you're not, don't. But you can always get it on the wheel. I generally am not somebody who plays Threaten. But there are people who play it. There are decks where it works well in. Those decks are aggro. And Shackles or Act of Treason is basically removal, sort of, for the turn in which you win the game. But, you can pick this up on the wheel. Don't use a real pick on it. Up next is Smashing Success. Smashing Success is 3 and a red for an instant at common. Destroy target artifact or land. If an artifact is destroyed this way, create a treasure token. Sideboard only. You're wheeling this card. You do not have to spend a real pick on this. If you want to blow up an artifact, go ahead. Here it is. But you're not main decking this. There's not enough artifacts that are going to be main decked to play this. There are no lands that you're going to desperately looking to blow up with this. So this is a wheel and not a main deck card. Yeah, there's not much in the way of sacrificing, really, unfortunately. But, Village Rites plus Smash is still, or Shackles is still pretty cool. Squash is up next. Squash is 4 and a red for an instant common. This spell costs 3 less to cast if you control a giant. Squash deals 6 damage to target creature or planeswalker. This card's very good. I would be fine playing this for 4 and a red all the time. I wouldn't play too many more than one of them, but I'd be fine. If you have giants, it's 2 mana deal 6. Which is very, very, very good. I think I'm putting this... Where am I picking this card? Like, it's second, third pick if you're in Giants already. Pack 1. Does this get me into Giants? Maybe this is like 4th, 5th pick in pack 1, but instant speed 6 damage is great. So I'm actually just going to, I'm jamming this as 2nd, 3rd pick. 2nd, 3rd pick for Squash. I like it a lot. If you are not Giants, don't play a bunch of these. If you are, play every single one you can get. Up next is Tibblet's Trickery. Tibblet's Trickery is 1 in a red for an instant at rare counter target spell. Choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Yes, I did just say counter target spell on a red card. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. So you counter their spell and hope they don't get a better one. That's an F. Yes, you could counter your own spell. You could counter your 1-drop and hope you hit something better. Don't. Play better cards. Draft better, play better cards. This is an F. It's fun, it's cute. Some night I'm going to have a couple beers or something and I'll try it. But this is an F. Up next is Torolf, God of Fury. Torolf, God of Fury is 2 red for a legendary creature god. At Mythic, it's a 5/4 trample. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Torolf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. This is pretty cool. It's a 5/4 trample for 4, which is great. The excess non-combat damage is a little tricky. It would require something like dealing 6 damage with a spell. So that's tricky to figure out how to do. And then he deals excess damage to something, hopefully getting more. There's even the slight ability of cascading here. Like we deal 6 damage to a 3/3, and then Torolf deals 3 damage to a 2/2. And then because Torolf's damage was non-combat damage, he would trigger again and do 1 more damage. And maybe we get to pick off a 1/1 as well. This card's amazing on the front. An easy first pick here. Super solid. Can Squash deal to player with Torolf? No, because players are not permanents. And Torolf deals damage to permanents. The backside of Torolf, which you'll probably never play, I would assume, is 1 in a red for a legendary artifact equipment, Torolf's Hammer. Equipped creature has, pay 1 in a red, tap, unattach Torolf's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Return Torolf's Hammer to its owner's hand. So it's Thor. He throws his hammer and it comes back. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. Equip for 1 in a red. So there's some interesting stuff here. You're always playing Torolf. Always. In most cases, there's going to be a rare exception where your opponent's really low on life, and you're going to go, oh, okay. 2 red mana, play Torolf's Hammer. 2 red mana, equip it to a creature. 2 red mana, tap it, deal 3 to you, bring Torolf's Hammer back to my hand. So it's a way of just being like, hey, opponent, I'm just going to whip this hammer at you for a couple of turns, and you're going to take like 3, 6, maybe 9 damage. And, if you in some way attempt to stop that, I'm going to drop a 5/4 trample for 4. Card's amazing. Easy first pick. Torolf can hit players, by the way. Permanent is only mentioned because of the source, the excess damage to permanent. Torolf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. Yes. So you could hit face. You could turn Squash into a lava axe at instant speed with Torolf down by squashing a 1/1. That's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. I don't think it'll be a 6-mana bolt. Like to do 6. Oh, sorry, Squash will be a 6-mana bolt. Yeah. I was thinking 6 damage with the hammer. 6 damage. The trick with the hammer is it's a lot of mana to like repeatedly do this. It's 2 to cast, 2 to equip, and then 2 to activate. So if you wanted to do this twice on a turn, you would need a dozen mana. But there's still that cool little bit of doing it once. Can shapeshifters be legendary? They can be legendary. You could have a legendary shapeshifter. But if you mean a changeling, changelings are not legendary. Legendary is not a creature type. It is a super type. Tormentor's Helm. Tormentor's Helm is a single red mana for an artifact equipment at common. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat, whenever equipped creature becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to defending player. Equip 1. We did it. We did it. We found an equipment that I think is okay. It's not good, but it's 1 mana to cast. It's 1 mana to equip. That's as low as you'll ever typically find equipment. +1/+1 is not nothing, and turning everything into an Ashmouth Hound is fine. It's not great, but if you really want to get into an equipment deck, if you really want equipment synergies, this is the one, other than like the Mythic Sword and whatnot. So I think this is still like 6th to 8th pick. You're not spending a super real pick on this. You might even just wheel this card, but this I think is the equipment you want if you're trying to do stuff with equipment. Up next is Tundra Fumarole. Tundra Fumarole is 1 red for a snow sorcery at rare. Tundra Fumarole deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Add colorless for each snow spent to cast this spell. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. 4 mana, sorcery speed for 3 is fine. We'll do it. It's not ideal, but it's still a very solid card. And if we spent snow mana, we get a discount. It's good. It's good. It's like 2nd or 3rd pick. I will pay sorcery speed to deal 4 damage to a creature. It's sorcery speed removal, 2nd or 3rd pick. Up next is Tuscary Firewalker. Tuscary Firewalker is 2 and a red for a creature human berserker at common. It's a 3/2 with boast for a single generic mana. Why is it rare though? Because WotC hates us. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. 3/2 for 3 is fine filler stats. That's a nice little wheel card right there. It's a berserker, which is relevant. Human, not so much. And then if you have a mana, and you think you're going to have mana left to cast whatever you reveal, or exile rather, why not? It's just a nice little upside. I don't think this is a card that you're going out of your way to pick. I think you probably still can just wheel this card. I wouldn't feel bad picking it like 7th or 8th. Let's go 6th through 8th for Tuscary Firewalker. I think it's fine enough. Up next is Vault Robber. Vault Robber is 1 and a red for a creature dwarf rogue at common. It's a 1/3, pay 1 tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard, make a treasure. Whoop-de-doo. This card's very underwhelming. 1/3 for 2 is okay. It's a rogue, which is not relevant. It's a dwarf, which could be. Can I get to make a treasure? It's not awful, but I have to put this card in my deck, right? And like, it's not helping you get your mana early because you probably don't have creature cards in your graveyard. So I don't think it's ramp. It might be ramp on like turn 5 or turn 6. Like, you have to exile a creature card from your graveyard to get that token. Anyways, this is on the wheel, but I don't think I'm looking to play this card very much, if ever. And there we go. We finished up red. Thanks for watching, YouTube. We've got one more video left in green. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And come check us out on Twitch, where we have a whole lot of fun. But see you all for the green video.